The wedding invitation sat on Emma Carter's kitchen counter like a loaded gun, her sister's name embossed in gold. The groom? Ryan Blake. The man Emma had loved for 3 years. The man who'd promised her forever before vanishing without explanation. Now he was marrying Victoria, the sister who'd always had everything Emma never could. As rain hammered against the window of her cramped New York apartment, Emma felt something crack inside her chest. She didn't know it yet, but in 7 days she'd be standing in a different world entirely, one where betrayal would become the least of her concerns. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far Emma's story travels. Now, let's begin. The hospital smelled like industrial cleaner and something worse underneath, something that clung to your clothes and followed you home no matter how many times you scrubbed your hands. Emma Carter stood at the nurse's station on the 4th floor, her back aching, her feet screaming inside shoes that had worn through at the heels 2 months ago. She hadn't replaced them, couldn't afford to. "Emma, we need fresh linens in 412, nurse practitioner Sandra Chen called out without looking up from her charts. "On it." Emma moved automatically, her body operating on muscle memory while her mind drifted somewhere else entirely. It had been doing that a lot lately, disconnecting, floating away like it was trying to escape from something her body couldn't run from. The invitation had arrived 3 days ago, 3 days, and she still couldn't throw it away. She pushed the linen cart down the hallway, its wheels squeaking with every rotation. The sound grated on her nerves, but everything grated on her nerves these days. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered and buzzed. A patient's call button chimed insistently from somewhere down the corridor. Someone was crying behind a closed door. Emma delivered the linens, checked on 2 post-op patients, refilled 3 water pitchers, and helped an elderly man to the bathroom. By the time her shift ended at 11 p.m., she'd been on her feet for 12 hours. Her supervisor, Margaret, had asked her, again, if she could cover part of tomorrow's day shift. "We're short-staffed," Margaret said, her expression apologetic but her tone expecting compliance. "Just 4 hours?" Emma thought about her bank account, the rent that was due in 6 days, the electricity bill that was already overdue. "Yeah," she heard herself say, "I can do that." "You're a lifesaver." Emma wasn't so sure about that. Most days she felt like she was barely saving herself. The subway platform was nearly empty when she descended the stairs. A few scattered people stood waiting. A man in a business suit scrolling through his phone, 2 women in scrubs like hers, a teenager with headphones the size of earmuffs. Nobody looked at anybody else. That was the unspoken rule of late-night public transit in New York. Everyone was invisible, and that's how everyone liked it. Emma had perfected invisibility. It wasn't hard when you'd been practicing your whole life. The train arrived with a screech of brakes and a blast of recycled air. She found a seat near the back, slumped against the plastic, and closed her eyes. 20 minutes to her stop. 20 minutes to not think about anything. But the invitation was in her bag. She could feel it there, a physical weight that defied logic. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Victoria wants to know if you've RSVP'd yet. The caterer needs final numbers." Emma stared at the message for a long moment, then locked her phone without responding. The apartment building where Emma lived was one of those structures that seemed to be held together by paint and prayers. The front door stuck. The hallway lights were perpetually burned out on the 3rd floor, and the elevator had been broken for 2 months. Emma climbed the stairs to the 5th floor, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Inside apartment 5C, she dropped her bag by the door and didn't bother turning on the lights. The street lamps outside provided enough illumination to navigate by. She moved through the familiar darkness to the kitchen, really just a corner of the main room with a hot plate and a mini fridge, and filled a glass with tap water. The invitation sat where she'd left it that morning, propped against the salt shaker. "Mr. and Mrs. Robert Carter request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Victoria Ann Carter, to Mr. Ryan Christopher Blake." Emma's hand shook as she set down the glass. Ryan Blake. 3 years. She'd given him 3 years. Late nights talking until sunrise. Weekends exploring the city together. Quiet mornings in his apartment, the good one in Tribeca that his family's money had paid for, where she'd felt like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "I love you," he'd told her, his hand cradling her face like she was something precious. I don't care what my father says. You're what I want. 2 weeks later, he'd stopped answering her calls. 4 months after that, Victoria had come home for Christmas with a new boyfriend. Tall, handsome, from a good family. Everything was very sudden, she'd said. Very unexpected. She was so happy. Emma had recognized him immediately. Ryan had looked at her exactly once during that dinner, his expression carefully blank, and she'd understood. He'd made his choice. She wasn't it. She'd never been it. She should have said something, should have screamed, thrown a plate, exposed him right there in front of their parents and the expensive wine and Victoria's delighted smile. Instead, she'd excused herself, locked herself in the bathroom, and cried as quietly as she could manage. Because that's what Emma did. She made herself small. She swallowed her pain. She disappeared. Fuck, she whispered to the empty apartment. The word felt good in her mouth, sharp and solid. She said it again, louder. Fuck. Nobody heard. Nobody cared. Emma grabbed the invitation, fully intending to tear it into pieces, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. Instead, she sank onto the worn couch, a curb rescue from 3 years ago, and stared at the embossed lettering until her vision blurred. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed her sister's name. Hello? Emma, finally, I've been trying to reach you all day. Victoria's voice was bright, effortless. Everything about Victoria was effortless. Did you get my text about the RSVP? Yeah. And? Emma's throat felt tight. I'm working that weekend. What? No, Emma, it's my wedding. You have to be there. You're my maid of honor. I never agreed to that. Well, of course you are. You're my sister. Who else would it be? Victoria laughed, that tinkling sound that had always made Emma feel like she was missing the joke. Besides, Mom already ordered your dress. It's gorgeous, champagne-colored, very elegant. Victoria, I know you're busy with work, but this is important. It's one day. Surely they can survive without you for one day. Emma wanted to say no. Wanted to tell Victoria the truth, all of it. Wanted to hear her sister's voice crack, her perfect composure shatter. I'll see what I can do, she said instead. Perfect, I knew I could count on you. Oh, and we're doing a final dress fitting on Tuesday. Can you make it? 6 o'clock at the bridal boutique in Soho. I work until 7, so leave early. Emma, please, this is my wedding. Victoria's voice took on that edge it always did when she wasn't getting her way, sharp beneath the sweetness. I need you there. No, Emma thought. You need someone to stand next to you and make you look better by comparison. That's all I've ever been good for. I'll try, she said. Great. Love you, sis. The line went dead before Emma could respond. She sat in the darkness, phone still pressed to her ear, and wondered what it would feel like to burn her entire life down. The next morning arrived too early and without mercy. Emma's alarm screamed at 5 a.m., and she dragged herself into the shower, letting scalding water beat against her skin until the tiny hot water heater gave up. She dressed in the same scrubs she'd worn yesterday. She'd washed them tonight, and grabbed a protein bar that tasted like cardboard. The day shift supervisor, Patricia, greeted her with a sympathetic smile. You look exhausted. I'm fine. Margaret said you're covering until 3? That's the plan. Patricia hesitated, then lowered her voice. You know you can say no, right? You're already working more hours than anyone else here. Emma forced a smile. It's fine, really. It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But Emma had learned a long time ago that saying things were fine was easier than explaining why they weren't. The morning blurred into afternoon. Patients came and went. Emma changed sheets, updated charts, administered medications under supervision, held the hands of people who were scared and alone. She was good at her job, good at being invisible, at anticipating needs, at making herself useful. By 2 p.m., she felt like she was walking through water. Everything moved in slow motion, her thoughts, her movements, the hands on the clock that seemed determined to mock her. Emma? You okay? Sandra Chen was watching her with concern. You just zoned out for a solid 30 seconds. Sorry, yeah, I'm good. When's the last time you ate something? Emma tried to remember. Breakfast. That was 11 hours ago. Go take 15. Get some food. The hospital cafeteria was in the basement, fluorescent and depressing, but the coffee was strong and the sandwiches were cheap. Emma grabbed both and found a table in the corner, away from the scattered groups of doctors and nurses on their breaks. She was halfway through her sandwich when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Emma. It's Chelsea, Victoria's college roommate. She gave me your number. We're planning the bachelorette party and need to know your availability." Emma stared at the message, then at her sandwich, then at the chipped formica table. Something inside her was breaking. She could feel it, a hairline fracture spreading through her chest, spiderwebbing outward with every breath. She typed back, "I don't think I can make it." The response came immediately. "Oh no, it won't be the same without you. Let me call you and we'll figure something out." Emma turned her phone to silent and shoved it in her pocket. The rest of her shift passed in a haze. By 3 p.m., she was clocking out and heading for the subway, her whole body aching with a fatigue that went deeper than physical exhaustion. The platform was crowded with afternoon commuters. Emma let 2 trains pass, 2 packed to board, before finally squeezing onto the third. She stood pressed against the door, someone's briefcase digging into her hip, and counted stops. At her station, she emerged into gray daylight and steady rain. Of course it was raining. She didn't have an umbrella. She'd left it at work 2 weeks ago, and someone had taken it. By the time she reached her building, she was soaked through. Water dripped from her hair, her scrubs clung to her skin, and her shoes squelched with every step. The stairs to the 5th floor seemed steeper than usual. Inside her apartment, Emma peeled off her wet clothes and stood shivering in the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the spotted mirror. Pale skin, dark circles under her eyes, hair that needed cutting. A body that was too thin in some places, too soft in others. When had she started disappearing? She showered, cold water this time, the hot tank still recovering, and dressed in sweatpants and a faded NYU t-shirt that had belonged to Ryan. She should have thrown it away, should have burned everything that reminded her of him. Instead, she wore it to sleep. Emma made ramen for dinner, eating it straight from the pot while standing at the kitchen counter. Through the window, she could see into the apartment across the street. A family was sitting down to dinner together. Mother, father, 2 kids. They were laughing about something. The mother reached over and wiped sauce from the younger child's face. Emma turned away. The evening stretched ahead, empty and endless. She tried watching TV, but nothing held her attention. Tried reading, but the words swam on the page. Finally, she just lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the building around her. Footsteps overhead. An argument bleeding through the walls in muffled Spanish. Someone's bass thumping a rhythm she could feel in her bones. At 10 p.m., she gave up on sleep and decided to go to the 24-hour bodega 3 blocks away. She needed milk, bread, something to get her through the next few days. And maybe the walk would tire her out enough to actually rest. The streets were quieter than she expected for a Friday night. Rain had driven most people indoors or into taxis. Emma walked quickly, hands shoved in her jacket pockets, hood pulled up against the drizzle. The bodega was bright and warm. She grabbed her items quickly, paid the tired-looking clerk, and headed back out into the night. That's when she noticed the bus at the stop across the street. Emma rarely took the bus. The subway was faster, but something about the sight of it, the doors still open, the interior lit up like a haven, made her sprint across the street and climb aboard. The driver, a middle-aged woman with braids and kind eyes, nodded at her. "Just made it." "Thanks," Emma panted, swiping her MetroCard. The bus was nearly empty. An elderly man dozed near the front. A young couple whispered together near the middle. Emma made her way to the back and collapsed into a seat by the window. The bus pulled away from the curb with a hiss of air brakes and a lurch. Emma pressed her forehead against the cool glass and watched the city slide by. Buildings, streetlights, people moving through their lives behind illuminated windows. She was thinking about nothing and everything when the bus made an unscheduled stop. 2 men boarded. Emma noticed them immediately because everything about them was wrong. Wrong clothes. Too nice for this bus route, this time of night. Wrong posture. Too alert. Too purposeful. Wrong eyes, scanning, assessing, calculating. The bus driver noticed too. "This ain't a regular stop. Keep driving," the first man said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. The second man moved down the aisle, and Emma saw the gun tucked into his waistband. Her breath caught in her throat. Everyone stay calm, the first man announced. We're looking for someone. This'll all be over soon. The elderly man was awake now, hands raised. The young couple clutched each other. The bus driver's hands were tight on the wheel. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She tried to make herself smaller, sink into the seat, become invisible. The second man walked slowly down the aisle, looking at each passenger. When he reached the young couple, he grabbed the man by the collar and hauled him up. Hey, what are... Shut up. Phone. Now. The young man fumbled for his phone with shaking hands. The gunman scrolled through it, grunted, and shoved him back into his seat. Not him. He kept moving, toward Emma. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the seat to hide it. The gunman stopped in front of her, stared at her for a long moment. Then he moved past her to the very back row. Emma's exhale came out in a rush. Turn around, the first man called from the front. We're getting off. The bus lurched as the driver complied. Emma could see they were on a street she didn't recognize, somewhere industrial, mostly empty. The doors hissed open. Move, the second gunman barked at someone in the back. Emma risked a glance over her shoulder and saw him dragging someone to their feet. A man, 30s maybe, in an expensive suit. The man was saying something, his voice low and angry, but Emma couldn't make out the words. The gunman hustled him off the bus. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the elderly man started crying. The bus driver pulled over at the next legitimate stop. Everyone off. I'm calling the police. Emma stumbled off the bus on shaking legs. The other passengers scattered immediately, wanting nothing to do with police reports and questions and complications. Emma should have stayed, should have given a statement. Instead, she started walking. She didn't know this neighborhood, didn't recognize any of the street signs. Her phone said she was 40 minutes from home on foot. She started walking anyway. The rain had picked up. Water streamed down her face, plastered her hair to her skull. Her jacket was soaked through. The plastic bag with her groceries cut into her palm. She walked faster. By the time she recognized where she was, her legs were trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline crash. Just 2 more blocks, and she'd be home. She'd lock her door, take a hot shower, and try to forget the look in that man's eyes as they dragged him off the bus. She was so focused on putting one foot in front of the other that she didn't notice the car until it was pulling up beside her. The window rolled down. You look like you could use a ride. Emma's head snapped up. The man behind the wheel was maybe 40, with dark hair silvered at the temples and eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Emma's yearly salary, and there was something about the way he looked at her. Intense, focused, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered in that moment. I'm fine, Emma said automatically. You're soaked. It's 1 a.m. You're in a part of town you clearly don't know. His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. Let me give you a ride. No, thank you. I insist. Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't really a request. Emma's heart started pounding again. I said no. The man studied her for another moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but take this. He held out a card through the window. In case you change your mind. Emma didn't take it. She started walking faster. Behind her, she heard the car pull away. She didn't slow down until she was inside her building, the front door locked behind her. Even then, even climbing the stairs to her apartment, she kept looking over her shoulder. Inside 5C, Emma locked the door, engaged the chain, and shoved a chair under the handle for good measure. Then she collapsed on the couch, still dripping wet, and tried to stop shaking. Her phone rang. Victoria again. Emma declined the call. It rang again immediately. This time it was her mother. She declined that too. A text came through. Emma Christine Carter, answer your phone right now. We need to discuss your behavior. Emma turned her phone off and let it fall to the floor. The wedding invitation was still on the counter. Still perfect, still impossible. Emma closed her eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. Outside, the rain kept falling. The city kept moving. Somewhere, people were living their lives, falling in love, making plans, being seen. Emma Carter, invisible as always, sat alone in the dark and wondered if she'd ever been real at all. Emma woke up on the couch, still wearing her wet clothes, Her neck twisted at an angle that sent shooting pain down her spine. Gray morning light filtered through the windows. For a moment, she couldn't remember why every muscle in her body ached, why her chest felt hollow. Then it all came rushing back. The bus, the guns, the man in the expensive car. She sat up slowly, peeling her damp jacket off with stiff fingers. Her phone was still on the floor where she'd dropped it. When she powered it on, the screen lit up with 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. Emma deleted them all without reading. The shower was cold again. She really needed to call the super about the hot water heater, but at least it washed away the grime and the memory of rain-soaked streets. She dressed for her shift in clean scrubs, braided her wet hair back from her face, and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, pale, exhausted, half erased. "Pull it together," she muttered. The hospital was chaos when she arrived. A multi-car accident on the expressway had flooded the ER, and staff from every floor had been called down to help. Emma spent the first 4 hours of her shift running supplies, holding pressure on wounds, and trying to keep out of the way of people who actually knew what they were doing. By noon, the rush had subsided enough for her to take a break. She was standing outside the employee entrance, breathing in exhaust-flavored air and trying to stop her hands from shaking when Sandra found her. "You weren't answering your phone." Emma pulled out her cell and realized she'd silenced it after the bus incident and never turned the ringer back on. "Sorry, what's up?" Sandra's expression was odd, concern mixed with something else Emma couldn't identify. "Someone's here to see you, at the main desk." "Who?" "He didn't give a name, just said it was important." Emma's stomach dropped. "I don't know anyone who'd—" "He's driving a car that probably costs more than I make in 2 years," Sandra interrupted. "And he's got that look, like he owns the building and is deciding whether to keep it." The main lobby was crowded with visitors and patients. Emma scanned the space and saw him immediately. The man from the car last night, leaning against the information desk like he belonged there, like he belonged anywhere he chose to be. He was watching the elevators, and when Emma stepped out, his gaze found her instantly. Her first instinct was to turn around and leave. Her second was to call security. She did neither. Instead, she walked toward him, her heart hammering, and stopped just out of arm's reach. "How did you find me?" He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You'd be surprised how easy people are to find when you know where to look." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." Up close, he was even more striking than she'd realized. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from marble, and eyes that were an unusual shade of gray-green. There was a thin scar running through his left eyebrow that somehow made him more attractive rather than less. "What do you want?" Emma asked. "To make sure you made it home safely." "I'm fine. You can leave now." "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" "No." His smile widened slightly. "You're cautious. That's good." "I'm leaving," Emma said, and turned to go. His hand caught her wrist, not hard, not threatening, but firm enough to stop her. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Emma looked down at where his fingers circled her wrist. His hands were large, scarred across the knuckles, like he'd punched a lot of walls or faces. "Let go of me." He did immediately, raising both palms in surrender. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you here?" "Because I think you saw something last night. On that bus." His voice had dropped lower, quiet enough that only she could hear. "And I think you're smart enough to be scared." Emma's throat went dry. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." He reached into his jacket. Emma flinched and pulled out a business card. "My name is Adrian Castellano. If anyone asks you questions about last night, if anyone approaches you, if anything feels wrong, you call me. Immediately." She stared at the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, just a name and a phone number. "Why would I call you?" "Because the people who were on that bus? They're not the kind of people you want to notice you." Adrian's expression was serious now, all traces of amusement gone. "And you were noticed." "I didn't see anything. I don't know anything." "I hope that's true." He pressed the card into her hand, his fingers warm against her cold ones. "But in case it's not, keep this. Please." Emma wanted to throw the card in his face, wanted to demand answers, wanted to scream that her life was already falling apart, and she didn't need mysterious men and expensive cars adding to the wreckage. Instead, she shoved the card in her pocket and walked away without another word. She felt his eyes on her all the way to the elevator. The rest of her shift blurred past in a haze of routine tasks and racing thoughts. Who was Adrian Castellano? How had he found her? What did he mean about being noticed? By the time she clocked out at 7, Emma's nerves were frayed to breaking. She took the subway home, hyper-aware of every person around her, jumping at every unexpected sound. When she finally locked herself inside her apartment, she sagged against the door and pressed her forehead to the cool wood. The business card was still in her pocket. She pulled it out, stared at it for a long moment, then shoved it in a drawer and tried to forget about it. Her phone rang. Her mother, again. This time, Emma answered. "Hi, Mom." "Emma, finally. Do you have any idea how worried I've been? Victoria said you haven't responded to anyone about the dress fitting, and Chelsea told me you're not coming to the bachelorette party, and Mom, I'm working. I can't just drop everything." "This is your sister's wedding, Emma Christine. Your only sister. She needs you." Emma bit back the bitter laugh rising in her throat. "Does she? What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'm tired. Can we talk about this later?" "No, we cannot talk about this later. The wedding is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Emma. You need to get your act together." Something in Emma snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the fear still coiled in her gut from the bus, from Adrian Castellano's warning. Maybe it was 3 years of swallowing her pain and pretending everything was fine. "You want to know why I haven't RSVP'd? Why I'm not jumping at the chance to be Victoria's maid of honor? Emma, Ryan was my boyfriend for 3 years, and then one day he just stopped. Stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped existing. And 4 months later, he shows up at Christmas dinner as Victoria's new boyfriend." Silence on the other end of the line. "You knew," Emma said softly. "You knew the whole time, didn't you?" Her mother's voice was tight when she finally spoke. "Ryan made a choice, Emma. He chose someone he could build a future with. Someone from his world. Someone who wasn't me. Victoria is successful. She's beautiful. She's everything I'm not. Yeah, Mom, I get it. I've always gotten it." "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." Emma's voice cracked. "It's always what you meant. I'm the one who couldn't get into a good college, the one who works for minimum wage wiping up after people, the embarrassment." "Emma, you're being dramatic. I have to go. Don't you dare hang up on—" Emma ended the call and turned her phone off. Then she walked to the kitchen, grabbed the wedding invitation, and this time she really did tear it into pieces. Small pieces. Confetti. It felt good. Not good enough, but good. She was sweeping the pieces into the trash when someone knocked on her door. Emma froze. Nobody knocked on her door. She didn't have friends who dropped by. Her neighbors kept to themselves. Delivery people left packages in the lobby. Another knock, louder this time. She moved to the door slowly and looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Not Adrian Castellano, someone else. Younger, with a buzz cut, and the kind of build that came from serious time in a gym. "Emma Carter?" he called through the door. She didn't answer. "I just need to ask you a few questions about last night. About the bus." Emma's blood turned to ice. "It'll just take a minute, nothing to worry about." Everything about this was wrong. If he was a cop, he'd have shown a badge. If he was a witness looking for corroboration, he wouldn't have tracked down her address. Adrian's words echoed in her head. "If anything feels wrong, you call me." Emma backed away from the door silently, barely breathing. The man knocked again, harder. Then she heard him say something to someone else. There were 2 of them, and footsteps retreated down the hallway. She waited 5 minutes. 10. Then she pulled Adrian's card from the drawer with shaking hands and dialed the number. He answered on the first ring. "Emma, how did you know it was me?" "I've been waiting for you to call. What's wrong?" She told him about the man at her door, the questions, the way her instincts had screamed danger. She was talking too fast, stumbling over words, but Adrian listened without interrupting. When she finished, there was a brief pause. Then, "Lock your door. Don't answer for anyone. I'm sending someone to you now." "Someone? What?" "Emma, listen to me very carefully. The people who took that man off the bus last night, they work for someone powerful, someone who doesn't like loose ends. You're a loose end. Her legs almost gave out. She sank onto the couch. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I believe you, but they don't know that, and they won't stop looking until they're sure. His voice softened slightly. I can protect you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Emma thought about her empty apartment, her dead-end job, her family who saw her as an inconvenience. She thought about being invisible, being nothing, being erased. Why do you care? She asked. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I don't know yet, but I do. There was honesty in his voice that caught her off guard. Raw honesty, like he was as surprised by it as she was. Okay, she whispered. There's a black SUV pulling up outside your building right now. The driver's name is Marcus. He'll bring you somewhere safe. Where? To me. Emma moved to the window and looked down at the street. Sure enough, a black SUV with tinted windows was idling at the curb. As she watched, a man climbed out, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, wearing a suit that barely contained his frame. I see him. Good. Pack a bag. Just essentials. You won't be coming back here for a while. The reality of what was happening hit her all at once. Adrian, I have a job. I'll handle it. Trust me. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to say this was insane, that she wasn't running away from her life based on the word of a man she'd met once in the rain. But she thought about the man at her door, the weight of the gun she'd seen on the bus, the look in Adrian's eyes when he'd warned her. Give me 5 minutes, she said. She threw clothes into a duffel bag without thinking about what she was packing. Jeans, shirts, underwear, her one good dress that she never wore, her toothbrush, her phone charger, the framed photo of her and her grandmother that sat on her nightstand. At the last second, she grabbed Ryan's old t-shirt and stuffed it in the bag too. She didn't know why. Marcus was waiting in the lobby when she came down. Up close, he was even more intimidating, 6'4" at least, with a scar running down the side of his neck and eyes that tracked every movement. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I'm Marcus Webb. Mr. Castellano sent me to ensure your safety. Yeah, he mentioned. Emma hitched her bag higher on her shoulder. Where are we going? Somewhere secure. If you'll come with me? The SUV was sleek and silent, the leather seats still warm from the heater. Marcus pulled into traffic smoothly, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. Have you worked for Adrian long? Emma asked, more to fill the silence than because she actually cared. 8 years. What exactly does he do? Adrian, I mean. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. He solves problems. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you, ma'am. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving Emma's neighborhood and heading into Manhattan proper. The buildings got taller, newer, more expensive. When Marcus finally pulled into an underground garage beneath a tower of glass and steel, Emma's stomach was in knots. The elevator required a key card to access. Marcus swiped his and pressed the button for the penthouse. Of course it was the penthouse. The doors opened directly into an apartment that looked like something from a magazine, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture in shades of gray and white, art on the walls that was probably worth more than Emma's car, if she'd owned a car. Adrian was standing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear. He turned when they entered, said something quick and low into the phone, then ended the call. Emma, thank you for coming. I'm not sure I had much choice. There's always a choice. He dismissed Marcus with a nod, waited until the elevator doors closed, then turned his full attention to Emma. Are you all right? I don't know what I am. She set her bag down and wrapped her arms around herself. You want to tell me what the hell is going on? Adrian moved to a bar cart in the corner and poured 2 glasses of something amber. He held one out to her. Whiskey. You look like you could use it. Emma took the glass but didn't drink. Answers. That's what I could use. Fair enough. Adrian took a sip of his own drink, considering his words. The men on that bus last night work for the Volkov family. Russian organized crime. They were collecting someone who'd stolen from them. The guy in the suit. His name was David Chen. He managed one of their money laundering operations and got greedy, skimmed $2 million off the top. Adrian's expression was neutral, clinical. They found him 3 days ago. Last night was the pickup. Emma's hands were shaking again. She set the glass down before she dropped it. And they think I saw something? They're being thorough, making sure there are no witnesses who could identify them. So they kill anyone who was on that bus? Her voice climbed higher. That's insane. That's reality. Adrian's voice was hard now. This isn't a world where people file police reports and hope for justice. This is a world where loose ends get eliminated. Emma sank onto the nearest chair. I'm going to be sick. Breathe, just breathe, she tried. In through her nose, out through her mouth, like they'd taught her in the hospital for panicking patients. It didn't really help. Why are you helping me? She asked when she could speak again. You don't know me. This isn't your problem. Adrian sat across from her, forearms resting on his knees. Because I know the Volkovs. I know how they operate. And I know that if I don't help you, you're dead within 48 hours. Jesus. I'm sorry, I know this is a lot. Emma laughed, the sound edging toward hysteria. A lot. Yeah, that's one way to put it. She pressed her palms to her eyes. This can't be real. This can't be happening. I wish it wasn't. She looked up at him. Who are you, really? Adrian leaned back, the lamplight catching the planes of his face. I'm someone who exists in the same world as the Volkovs. Someone with enough reach to keep you safe. That's not an answer either. I know. He met her eyes steadily. I run a security consulting firm, very private, very exclusive. We handle problems for people who can't go through normal channels. You mean you're a criminal? I mean I operate in the gray areas that most people pretend don't exist. Emma should have been terrified. Should have demanded he let her go. Should have run for the elevator and taken her chances on the street. Instead, she heard herself ask, Can you really protect me? Yes. No hesitation, no false promises, just simple certainty. Emma picked up the whiskey and drank it in one burning gulp. Okay, so what happens now? Now you stay here where it's secure. Marcus is stationed in the building. I have 2 other men watching the entrances. The Volkovs won't find you. For how long? As long as it takes. I have a job, Adrian. Bills, a life. I've already called your supervisor, told her you had a family emergency and needed immediate leave. Your rent is paid through the end of the year. Your utilities are covered. Emma stared at him. You can't just... I can. And I did. He stood and moved to the windows, looking out at the glittering city below. Your old life put you in danger. This one keeps you breathing. You don't get to make those decisions for me. You're right. I don't. He turned back to face her. So make them yourself. Stay here, stay safe, and give me time to handle the Volkovs. Or leave, go back to your apartment, and hope they find you before they decide you know too much. It wasn't a real choice. They both knew it. Emma stood on shaking legs. Where do I sleep? Adrian's expression softened slightly. Second door on the left. The bathroom's stocked. If you need anything, I'm down the hall. She picked up her bag and headed for the bedroom, then paused in the doorway. Why did you help me last night? On the street. You could have just driven past. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. You looked like you'd been through something, like you needed someone to see you. He met her eyes. I saw you. Emma's throat tightened. She nodded once and disappeared into the bedroom before he could see the tears starting to fall. The room was bigger than her entire apartment. King-size bed with white linens, a window seat overlooking the city, abstract art on the walls. Everything clean and expensive and utterly foreign. Emma locked the door, dropped her bag, and collapsed onto the bed. The mattress was obscenely comfortable, the kind of softness that probably cost thousands of dollars. She pulled out her phone, still off, and stared at it for a long moment. If she turned it on, there would be more calls from her mother, more texts from Victoria, more reminders of the life she'd just left behind. She powered it on anyway. 43 missed calls, 61 text messages. Emma scrolled through them numbly. Her mother, increasingly frantic. Victoria, increasingly angry. A few from coworkers asking if she was okay. One from Ryan. Her finger hovered over his name. She shouldn't open it, shouldn't care what he had to say. She opened it. I heard you told your mom about us. That's messed up, Emma. Victoria's really hurt. Can you just let us be happy? Emma read it 3 times, feeling something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. She typed back, "Go to hell." Then she blocked his number, blocked Victoria's number, blocked her mother's number, and turned her phone off again. In the silence that followed, Emma could hear the city humming outside the windows. Millions of people living their lives, unaware that hers had just imploded. She curled onto her side, still wearing her scrubs, and stared at the wall until her eyes burned. Sleep didn't come. Instead, she lay there replaying everything: the bus, the guns, Adrian's warning, the man at her door. It felt like a nightmare, the kind where you keep thinking you'll wake up but never do. Around midnight, she heard movement in the apartment. Footsteps, water running, Adrian, moving through his space like it was the most natural thing in the world. Emma wondered what it must be like to be him, to move through the world with that kind of confidence, that kind of power, to make decisions and have them stick. She wondered what it would be like to not be invisible anymore. Somewhere around 2 a.m., exhaustion finally dragged her under. She dreamed of buses that never stopped, of elevators with no buttons, of drowning in water while people walked past without seeing. When she woke, gray dawn light was filtering through the windows and someone was knocking softly on her door. "Emma, are you awake?" Adrian's voice. Careful, quiet. She sat up, disoriented, her neck aching from the awkward angle she'd slept at. "Yeah, I'm up. I made coffee and breakfast, if you're hungry." Emma's stomach growled traitorously. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten anything beyond that cafeteria sandwich. "Give me 5 minutes." She used the bathroom, marble everything, towels that felt like clouds, soap that probably cost more per ounce than her entire shower caddy, and tried to make herself presentable. Failed, mostly. Her hair was a mess, her scrubs were wrinkled, and the circles under her eyes looked like bruises. When she emerged, Adrian was in the kitchen. He changed into jeans and a black t-shirt that fit him too well, his hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "You look exhausted." "Thanks. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear." His smile widened. "I meant you look like you need sleep, real sleep. When's the last time you actually rested?" Emma thought about it. "I don't remember." "Then that's what you're doing today. Eating, sleeping, not thinking about anything else." He slid a plate across the counter. Eggs, toast, fruit. "Sit." She sat, too tired to argue, and discovered she was starving. The food was simple but good, better than anything she'd cooked for herself in months. Adrian poured her coffee and leaned against the counter, watching her eat. "What?" Emma asked around a mouthful of eggs. "Nothing. It's just nice to see someone actually enjoy food. When you've been living on ramen and protein bars, this is basically a feast." Something flickered across Adrian's face, pity, maybe, or understanding. "You won't have to do that anymore." Emma set down her fork. "I'm not a charity case." "I never said you were." "Then don't treat me like one." They stared at each other for a moment, tension crackling in the space between them. Then Adrian raised his hands in surrender. "You're right. I'm sorry." Emma picked up her fork again, mollified slightly. They ate in silence for a while, the city waking up outside the windows. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said eventually. "Of course." "Why do you live alone in a place this big?" Adrian glanced around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. "I don't know. I suppose I like having space, room to breathe." "It's lonely." "Sometimes." He met her eyes. "Is that what your place felt like? Lonely?" "All the time," Emma said before she could stop herself. Adrian's expression softened. "Not here. Not while you're here." It should have sounded like a line, should have made her defensive, wary. Instead, it sounded like a promise. And for the first time in as long as Emma could remember, she didn't feel invisible at all. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Emma slept more than she had in years, waking up disoriented in the massive bed, taking long minutes to remember where she was and why. The apartment was quiet during the day. Adrian left early each morning and returned late, always checking in with her first thing when he got back. "Did you eat?" he'd ask. "Yes." "Did anyone bother you?" "No." "Good." It became a ritual, those brief exchanges. Sometimes he'd linger, ask her about her day, tell her small things about his. Other times, he'd disappear into his office, and she wouldn't see him until the next morning. Emma spent her time exploring the apartment like it was a museum. She found a library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, a gym that looked barely used, a terrace she was afraid to step onto because the height made her dizzy. Everything was beautiful and expensive and utterly impersonal, like Adrian had hired someone to make the space look lived in without actually living in it himself. On the fourth morning, she woke to find him sitting in the kitchen with his laptop and a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. "You look terrible," she said. He glanced up, eyes bloodshot. "Thanks. Did you sleep at all?" "Not really." Emma poured herself coffee and sat across from him. "What are you working on?" "You." Her stomach clenched. "What does that mean?" Adrian closed his laptop and rubbed his face. "The Volkovs. I'm trying to figure out how to make them forget you exist." "And?" "It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated." Emma wrapped her hands around her mug. "Tell me anyway." He studied her for a long moment, like he was trying to decide how much truth she could handle. "They've been asking questions, tracking down everyone who was on that bus. So far, 2 people are missing. One turned up in the East River yesterday." Emma's coffee turned to acid in her stomach. "Jesus. I've put out word that you're under my protection. That should buy us some time." "Should?" "The Volkovs and I have an understanding. We don't interfere with each other's business. But this," he gestured vaguely, "this is interference." "So I'm a problem. You're a complication." "What's the difference?" Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Problems get eliminated. Complications require strategy." Emma set down her mug before her shaking hands could betray her. "You're talking about people dying like it's a business transaction. Because in my world it is. Your world is insane." "Yes," he agreed simply. "It is." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city was waking up. Traffic sounds, sirens, the distant rumble of construction. Normal people living normal lives. "I need to know something," Emma said finally. "And I need you to be honest with me." "All right. Are you using me? Is this all just some move in whatever game you're playing with the Volkovs?" Adrian's expression went very still. "Is that what you think?" "I don't know what to think. You show up out of nowhere. You know exactly where to find me. You have all these resources at your disposal. It's convenient, isn't it? Having leverage." "You think you're leverage, aren't I?" He stood abruptly and moved to the windows, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was tight with something Emma couldn't identify. "When I saw you that night, standing in the rain looking like the world had beaten you down one too many times, I had a choice. Drive past. Mind my business. Let whatever was going to happen, happen." "But you didn't." "No. Because, He turned to face her. "Because you reminded me of someone I used to know. Someone who got crushed by people with more power than conscience. And I thought just once, maybe I could actually help instead of just survive." "Who did I remind you of?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "My sister. Before she died." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with grief and old pain. "I'm sorry," Emma said softly. "It was a long time ago." He moved back to the table but didn't sit. "The truth is, Emma, you walked into my life at exactly the wrong time. I was already looking into the Volkovs for unrelated reasons. And then you appeared, a witness to one of their operations, vulnerable and alone. I should have just made a phone call, sent Marcus to set you up somewhere safe, and forgotten about you." "Why didn't you?" "Because I couldn't." His eyes met hers, intense and unguarded. "Because from the moment you looked at me on that street, something in me shifted, and I don't know what to do with that." Emma's heart was pounding. "This is crazy. I know." "You don't know me. I don't know you." "I know." He took a step closer. "But I want to. Is that insane?" "Completely." "Say the word and I'll back off. I'll keep you safe, handle the Volkovs, and when it's done, you can go back to your life. I won't push." Emma thought about her old apartment, her exhausting job, her family who only called when they needed something. She thought about being invisible, being nothing, being erased one day at a time. "What if I don't want you to back off?" she heard herself say. Adrian went very still. Then we have a problem. I thought I was a complication. You're both. He closed the distance between them, stopping just shy of touching her. This can't work, Emma. My life, what I do, who I am, it's not something you can just dip your toe into. It's all or nothing. Maybe I'm tired of nothing. You don't know what you're saying. Don't tell me what I know. She stood, bringing them face to face. I've spent my entire life making myself smaller, quieter, less, apologizing for existing. And where did it get me? Nowhere. With no one. So maybe crazy is exactly what I need. Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. I can't promise you safe. I can't promise you normal. I don't want safe. I don't want normal. Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want to feel like I matter. You do matter. Prove it. He kissed her then, and it wasn't gentle or tentative. It was fierce and desperate, like he'd been holding back and the dam had finally broken. Emma kissed him back just as hard, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea. The worst, Emma agreed. 1 week. She pulled back to look at him. What? Give me 1 week to show you what this life could be. Really be. Not locked in this apartment, but out there, with me. And at the end of the week, if you want to walk away, I'll let you go. I'll make sure you're safe and set up somewhere new, and I won't follow. And if I don't want to walk away? His smile was slow and dangerous. Then we see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Emma knew she should say no, should be smart, cautious, reasonable. Instead, she said, when do we start? Tonight. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. I have to handle something. Stay here. Marcus is downstairs if you need anything. What are you handling? The Volkovs. I'm meeting with Dmitri. He's the head of the family, going to make it clear that you're off limits. Fear spiked through Emma's chest. Is that dangerous? Everything I do is dangerous. He kissed her forehead quickly. I'll be back before dinner, then we'll go out. Where? You'll see. He was gone before she could ask more questions, leaving Emma alone with her racing thoughts and the taste of him still on her lips. She tried to distract herself with a book from Adrian's library, but couldn't focus. Tried watching TV, but everything felt trivial and meaningless. Finally, she just paced the apartment, checking her phone compulsively, even though she had no one to call. Around 3 p.m., Marcus appeared at the door with bags of groceries. Mr. Castellano asked me to bring these up, he said, setting them on the kitchen counter. Figured you might want to cook something. Emma stared at the bags. Fresh vegetables, good meat, real butter. He thinks of everything, doesn't he? That's his job. Marcus paused at the door. Can I say something, Ms. Carter? Emma, and yes. I've worked for Mr. Castellano for 8 years. I've seen him with a lot of people. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. Is that a warning? It's an observation. Marcus's expression was unreadable. He's a good man in a bad business. Just remember that when things get complicated. After he left, Emma unpacked the groceries and tried to figure out what to make. She wasn't a great cook, hadn't had much practice in her tiny apartment with limited equipment. But Adrian's kitchen was a dream, all high-end appliances and sharp knives. She settled on pasta carbonara, something simple but impressive. By the time Adrian walked through the door at 6:30, the apartment smelled like garlic and bacon, and the table was set for 2. He stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. You cooked? Don't sound so surprised. I have some skills. I can see that. He shrugged off his jacket and loosened his tie. How was your day? Quiet. Boring. How was your meeting with Dmitri? Adrian's expression went carefully neutral. Productive. That's not an answer. He's agreed to leave you alone. In exchange, I owe him a favor. Emma's stomach dropped. What kind of favor? The kind I'll worry about later. He moved to the table and pulled out her chair. For now, let's eat. This looks amazing. The pasta was good. Not restaurant quality, but solid. They ate and talked about nothing important, and Emma found herself relaxing despite everything. Adrian had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, and when he smiled, really smiled, It transformed his whole face. After dinner, he disappeared into his room and came back with the black dress draped over his arm. "For tonight," he said, holding it out to her. Emma took it, feeling the expensive fabric between her fingers. "Where exactly are we going?" "Dancing." "I don't dance." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." The dress fit perfectly, which should have been impossible since Adrian had never asked her size. Emma looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress was simple but elegant, showing just enough skin to be interesting without being obvious. She found Adrian waiting in the living room, now wearing a suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. He looked her over slowly, his eyes darkening. "You're beautiful." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You're not so bad yourself." "Come on, we're going to be late." The club was in a part of Manhattan Emma had never been to, the kind of place where you needed to know someone to even find the door. Inside, it was all low lighting and jazz music and people who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Adrian kept his hand on the small of Emma's back as they moved through the crowd, and she noticed how people watched them, watched him specifically. Respectful, wary, like they knew exactly who he was and what he was capable of. They found a booth in the back, private and shadowed. A waitress appeared immediately with champagne Emma hadn't ordered. "Compliments of the house, Mr. Castellano." "Thank you, Diane." When they were alone again, Emma raised an eyebrow. "You come here often?" "I own the place." "Of course you do." He smiled and poured them each a glass. "To new beginnings." Emma clinked her glass against his. "And terrible decisions." The champagne was better than anything she'd ever tasted, bubbles dancing on her tongue. Around them, people danced to a live band playing something slow and sultry. "Tell me about your sister," Emma said after a while. Adrian's smile faded. "That's heavy for a first date." "Is that what this is? A date?" "I'm not sure what else to call it." "Then tell me. I want to know." He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his glass. "Her name was Sophia. She was younger than me by 4 years. Smart. Funny. Wanted to be a teacher." His jaw tightened. "We grew up in Queens. Our father was nobody. Worked construction when he could find work. Our mother cleaned houses. We didn't have much, but we were happy enough." "What happened?" "I got involved with the wrong people. Started running errands for a local crew, making money. More money than my father made in a month. I thought I was being smart, helping the family." He laughed bitterly. "I was 17 and stupid." Emma waited, sensing there was more. "Sophia found out what I was doing, tried to get me to stop. We fought about it. She threatened to tell our parents." Adrian's hands tightened around his glass. "The people I was working for heard about it, decided she was a liability. They grabbed her off the street one day after school. 3 days later, we found her body in a dumpster in the Bronx." "Adrian, I killed them all," he said softly. "Every single person involved. It took me 2 years, but I killed them all. And when I was done, I realized I was good at it. At seeing problems and eliminating them. At being the kind of person people were afraid of." Emma reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made my choices. Built this life on purpose." He looked at her. "But sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just walked away. If I'd been normal." "You'd be miserable." He laughed, surprised. "How do you figure?" "Because people like us, we don't fit in the normal world. We're too broken, too sharp around the edges. The regular life would feel like drowning." Emma squeezed his hand. "At least here, you're free." Adrian stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "How are you this understanding about what I do?" "I'm not. It terrifies me." She finished her champagne. "But I've spent my whole life being terrified and playing it safe, and it got me nowhere. So maybe it's time to try terrified and reckless instead." "You're not what I expected." "Good. Expectations are overrated." The band shifted into something slower, more intimate. Adrian stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me." "I told you I don't dance. And I told you we'd figure it out together." On the floor, he pulled her close, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. Emma had never been good at dancing, too self-conscious, too aware of her own body taking up space. But with Adrian, it didn't matter. He led with quiet confidence, and she found herself following, their bodies moving together like they'd done this 100 times before. "This is nice," she said against his shoulder. "It is. Tomorrow I want the truth, though. All of it. What you really do. What being with you would actually mean." Adrian pulled back slightly to look at her. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm asking anyway." "All right, tomorrow, the truth." He kissed her temple. "Tonight, just this." They danced until Emma's feet hurt, and the champagne had gone to her head. Adrian took her home. She'd started thinking of the penthouse as home, which was dangerous but true, and walked her to her bedroom door. "Thank you," Emma said, "for tonight. Thank you for giving me a chance." She kissed him, slow and deep, until they were both breathing hard. When she pulled away, Adrian's eyes were dark with want. "1 week," she reminded him. "1 week," he agreed roughly. Emma slipped into her room and closed the door, her heart pounding. She could hear him standing there for a long moment before his footsteps retreated down the hall. She changed into pajamas and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like her life had just split into before and after. Before Adrian. After Adrian. Tomorrow, he'd tell her everything. Tomorrow, she'd have to decide if she could really live in his world. But tonight, she let herself feel wanted, seen, like she mattered. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Emma fell asleep smiling. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she just lay there, savoring the warmth and the softness and the quiet. Then reality crashed back. Today was the day Adrian would tell her the truth about his life, about what being with him would really mean. Emma, dressed in jeans and one of the new shirts Adrian had somehow procured for her, he still hadn't explained how he knew her size, and found him in the kitchen reading something on his tablet. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning." She poured herself coffee and sat across from him. "So, the truth." Adrian set down the tablet and gave her his full attention. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with what you actually do, the real version." He took a breath. "I run a network of people who handle problems for very wealthy, very powerful clients. Sometimes that means security. Sometimes it means information gathering. Sometimes it means making people disappear." "Making people disappear?" Emma repeated. "You mean killing them?" "Sometimes. Not always. But yes, that's part of it." Emma's stomach churned, but she kept her voice steady. "How many people have you killed? Do you really want that number?" "Yes. 23. That I've done myself. More if you count the people I've ordered killed." 23. Emma tried to process that, tried to reconcile it with the man who'd made her breakfast and danced with her last night. "Do you regret it?" "Some of them. Most of them deserved it." He met her eyes. "I know how that sounds. I know you're thinking I'm a monster. I'm thinking you're complicated." "That's a generous interpretation." Emma wrapped her hands around her mug. "Tell me about the Volkovs. What you had to do to protect me." "Dmitri wanted proof you weren't a threat. I gave him access to your phone records, your work schedule, your whole life. Showed him you're exactly what you appear to be, a nurse's aide who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he believed you. He believed the favor I promised him was worth more than eliminating you." Adrian's expression hardened. "I told him if anyone in his organization touched you, I'd burn his empire to the ground. Would you?" "Yes." The simple certainty in his voice sent a shiver down Emma's spine. "What's the favor you owe him?" "I don't know yet. That's how these things work. He'll call it in when he needs it, and I'll handle it." "That doesn't scare you?" "Everything scares me, Emma. I'm just better at hiding it than most people." She studied him across the table. This man who'd killed 23 people, who ran a criminal empire, who'd upended her entire life in less than a week. "Why me? Really? Don't give me the line about your sister. Why are you doing this?" Adrian was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Because when I saw you, I saw someone who'd been beaten down by life, but was still standing. Someone who deserved better than what the world had given them. And I thought, maybe if I could help you, Maybe if I could give you a chance at something more, it would balance the scales a little. All the bad things I've done, all the darkness, maybe one good thing could make a difference. I'm not your redemption, Adrian. I know. But maybe you could be my reason to try. Emma's throat felt tight. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city spread below them. If I stay, if I say yes to this week and whatever comes after, what does that make me? It makes you someone who chose to live instead of just survive. It makes me complicit in everything you do. Yes, he admitted. It does. She turned to face him. I need you to understand something. I'm not going to become some mafia wife who looks the other way and pretends not to know what her husband does. If I'm in this, I'm in it, all the way. I'll know what you're doing, and I'll have opinions about it, and I'm going to drive you insane. Adrian's smile was slow and genuine. I'm counting on it. I'm serious. I'm not going to change who I am just to fit into your world. I don't want you to. He stood and crossed to her, taking her hands in his. I like exactly who you are. The way you call me on my bullshit. The way you refuse to be intimidated. The way you look at me like I'm a person instead of a monster. You are a monster, though. I know. But you're also something else, something better. Adrian pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. 1 week. That's what we agreed. 6 more days to decide if you can really live with this. Emma wrapped her arms around his waist and held on tight. What are we doing today? I have a meeting this afternoon. Business I can't postpone. Come with me. See what my life actually looks like. Is that safe? Marcus will be there, and 3 other people I trust with my life. You'll be fine. Emma pulled back to look at him. You're really going to let me see how the sausage gets made? You asked for the truth. This is the truth. 2 hours later, Emma found herself in the back of Adrian's SUV, Marcus driving, heading to a warehouse in Brooklyn. She was wearing different clothes now, dark jeans, a leather jacket Adrian had produced from somewhere, boots with a heel that made her feel dangerous. You look terrified, Adrian said quietly. I am terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He squeezed her hand. Stay close to me. Don't talk unless I introduce you. And if I tell you to leave, you go with Marcus immediately. No questions. You're really selling this. His mouth quirked. Just want you to know what you're walking into. The warehouse was exactly what Emma expected. Gray, industrial, imposing. Marcus pulled around to a side entrance where 2 men in suits were waiting. They nodded respectfully to Adrian and completely ignored Emma. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something that looked almost like an office. Desks, computers, people working quietly. But there was an undercurrent of tension, of violence barely contained. Adrian led her through the space, hand on her lower back, and Emma felt every eye track their movement. She kept her spine straight and her expression neutral, the way she'd learned to do in the hospital when doctors were screaming and patients were dying. They ended up in a conference room where 3 men were already waiting. They stood when Adrian entered, greetings exchanged, then their eyes shifted to Emma. This is Emma, Adrian said simply. She's with me. That was apparently all the explanation they needed. They nodded and sat back down. The meeting was about logistics, shipping routes, payment schedules, problems with a client in Miami. Emma listened, trying to understand the coded language they used. It took her a while to realize they were talking about weapons. A lot of weapons. Adrian handled it all with calm efficiency, making decisions quickly, delegating tasks. This was a different side of him, harder, colder, more calculated. The man who'd made her breakfast felt very far away. When the meeting ended and they were alone again, Adrian looked at her carefully. You okay? You sell guns, among other things. To who? People who need them for reasons I don't ask about. Emma's head was spinning. This is a lot, I know. He guided her out of the warehouse and back to the SUV. We can leave. Go back to the apartment. Forget about the rest of the week. But Emma shook her head. She'd asked for this. Asked to see his world, his life. No, show me more. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, next stop. They went to 3 more locations that afternoon. A nightclub that served as a front for money laundering. A restaurant where Adrian met with a judge who was clearly on his payroll. A parking garage where a transaction took place that Emma deliberately didn't look at too closely. By the time they got back to the penthouse, it was dark and Emma's head was throbbing. "I need a drink," she said. Adrian poured them both whiskey, and they sat in silence, the city lights glittering beyond the windows. "So," he said eventually, "what's the verdict?" Emma downed her whiskey in one gulp. "You weren't kidding. Your life is complicated." "That's a diplomatic way of putting it. I'm not going to lie and say I'm comfortable with everything I saw today. The guns, the money, the people who are clearly afraid of you." She turned to face him. "But I also saw you handle everything with more control and intelligence than most legitimate businessmen I've met. You're not just some thug. You're smart, strategic." "That's supposed to make it better?" "It doesn't make it better. It makes it real." Emma stood and paced to the window. "I spent today watching you operate in your world, and you know what I kept thinking?" "What?" "That I wanted to be part of it." She laughed, the sound a little wild. "I'm insane. I know I'm insane. But watching you command that room, watching people respect you and fear you and listen to you, I wanted that. I wanted to matter like that." Adrian came up behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "You matter to me." "I know, but I want to matter to myself too." She turned in his arms. "I've spent my whole life being nothing to everyone. And today, standing next to you, I felt like someone. Like I had power just by association. Is that sick?" "No, it's human." Emma kissed him, hard and desperate, and Adrian kissed her back with the same intensity. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, she said, "I want the rest of the week. All of it. Show me everything." "Emma, I'm not made of glass. I won't break. Show me your whole world, and then I'll decide if I can live in it." Adrian's eyes searched hers. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He smiled then, genuine and warm. "You're going to turn my entire life upside down, aren't you?" "Probably." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "I could use the chaos." They ordered dinner and ate on the terrace. Emma had finally gotten over her fear of heights and talked about everything and nothing. Adrian told her about growing up in Queens, about his first job working for a man named Vincent Romano, about the moment he realized he was good at violence. Emma told him about her family, about always being the disappointment, about Ryan and Victoria and the wedding invitation that had started all of this. "Do you still love him?" Adrian asked. "No, I don't think I ever really did. I think I love the idea of being loved by someone like him." Emma stared out at the city. "I was so desperate to matter to someone that I didn't realize he never actually saw me. None of them did." "I see you." "I know." She reached for his hand. "That's the scariest part." They sat in comfortable silence until the city lights blurred together and exhaustion pulled at Emma's edges. Adrian walked her to her room, kissed her goodnight at the door, and Emma fell asleep thinking about guns and money and the way power felt in her hands. 4 more days. 4 more days to decide if she could really live in Adrian Castellano's world. But as she drifted off, Emma realized the decision had already been made. She'd known the moment she kissed him, the moment she asked him to show her everything. She was already in too deep to climb back out, and the terrifying part was, she didn't want to. The next morning, Emma woke to her phone vibrating on the nightstand. She'd kept it off for days, avoiding the outside world, but she'd turned it on last night out of habit. Now it was buzzing insistently with a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her swipe to accept. "Hello? Emma Carter?" A woman's voice, professional and cold. "Who is this?" "My name is Detective Sarah Chen with the NYPD. I need to ask you some questions about an incident that occurred on a city bus approximately 1 week ago." Emma's blood went cold. She sat up, suddenly wide awake. "I already gave a statement." "No, Ms. Carter, you didn't. You left the scene before officers arrived. We have you listed as a witness who failed to cooperate with an ongoing investigation." "I didn't fail to cooperate. Emma stopped herself. What could she say? That she'd run because a mysterious man had warned her people were looking for her? That she was now living with that same man in his penthouse while he negotiated with criminals on her behalf? "I'd like you to come down to the station today, just to clear up a few details." "I'm not sure I can do that." "It wasn't really a request, Ms. Carter." The line went dead. Emma sat frozen, phone clutched in her hand, panic rising in her chest. She threw on clothes and went looking for Adrian, finding him in his office on a call. He held up one finger, finished his conversation in rapid Italian, then focused on her. "What's wrong?" She told him about the call. Adrian's expression darkened with each word. "Did you agree to go to the station?" "No, I didn't know what to say." He stood and pulled out his own phone, typing something quickly. "Detective Sarah Chen, you said?" "Yes. How did you—" "I'm handling it." He made another call, speaking in that same clipped Italian. When he hung up, he turned back to Emma. "You're not going to talk to her or anyone else from the NYPD. If they call again, don't answer." "Adrian, I can't just ignore the police." "You can when they're fishing. Chen isn't investigating the bus incident. That case was closed 3 days ago when the man they took turned up dead in New Jersey. She's working a different angle." "What angle?" "Me." Adrian moved to the window, his posture tense. "Someone told her you're connected to me, and now she's trying to use you to dig into my business." Emma's stomach twisted. "So this is my fault. I'm the weak link." "No. You're the person they think they can pressure." He turned back to her, his expression softening slightly. "But they're wrong. You don't know anything that can hurt me, and even if you did, you wouldn't talk." "How do you know that?" "Because you're here. Because you asked to see my world instead of running from it. Because you're stronger than they think you are." Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to feel as confident as he sounded. Instead, she felt like she was drowning. "What if they arrest me for not cooperating?" "They won't." "You can't know that." "Yes, I can." Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his mouth tightened. "I have to go handle this. Stay here. Don't answer your phone. Don't open the door for anyone except Marcus." "Where are you going?" "To make sure Detective Chen understands that you're off limits." Fear spiked through Emma's chest. "What does that mean? Adrian, you can't hurt a cop." "I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm going to have a conversation." He kissed her quickly, already moving toward the door. "Trust me." Then he was gone, leaving Emma alone with her racing thoughts and the terrible certainty that she'd just made everything worse. She tried to distract herself with breakfast, with a book, with anything that would stop her mind from spiraling. Nothing worked. By noon, she was pacing the apartment like a caged animal, jumping at every sound. Marcus appeared around 1 p.m. with lunch she couldn't eat. "He's fine," Marcus said, reading her expression. "Boss knows how to handle cops." "Does he?" "Because it seems like a really good way to end up in prison." "Mr. Castellano doesn't go to prison. People who cross him do." Emma stared at him. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you understand who you're dealing with." Marcus set the food on the counter. "Look, I get it. You're scared. This world is scary. But Adrian's the best at what he does, and what he does is survive. If you're with him, you'll survive too. Unless I become a liability." "You're not a liability. You're the first person in 8 years I've seen him actually care about." Marcus headed for the door. "That makes you the most protected person in this city." After he left, Emma stood at the window and watched the city move below her. Millions of people living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. She could have been one of them, should have been one of them. Instead, she was here, waiting for a criminal to come back from threatening a police detective on her behalf. Her phone rang again. "Detective Chen." Emma declined the call and blocked the number. 10 minutes later, it rang from a different number. Blocked again. On the third call, Emma answered. "Stop calling me." "Ms. Carter, I strongly advise you to cooperate with this investigation. Obstruction of justice is a serious crime." "I don't know anything. I was on a bus, some men got on and took someone off, and I left. That's all I can tell you." "What about your relationship with Adrian Castellano?" Emma's grip tightened on the phone. "I don't have a relationship with Adrian Castellano." "Really?" "Because my sources say you've been living in his penthouse for the past week." "That's interesting, don't you think? A nurse's aide who can barely make rent suddenly shacked up with one of the most dangerous men in New York." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. And I think when you're ready to tell the truth, you'll find I can be very helpful." Protection. A new identity. A fresh start away from all of this. Chen's voice dropped lower. Think about it, Emma. Is he really worth going down for? The line went dead before Emma could respond. She stood there, phone in hand, Detective Chen's words echoing in her head. A fresh start, a new identity, a way out of this mess. It was tempting, so tempting. But when Emma thought about leaving, about going back to her old life or starting over somewhere new, all she felt was empty. Because Adrian had been right. She didn't want safe and normal anymore. She wanted to matter. She wanted to feel alive, even if it killed her. Adrian returned 2 hours later, looking tired but satisfied. Emma was on him the moment he walked through the door. What did you do? Had a conversation? Adrian? He sighed and loosened his tie. I reminded Detective Chen that she's been under investigation by Internal Affairs for the past 6 months. Something about evidence tampering in a case from last year. I suggested it would be unfortunate if that investigation suddenly received additional evidence confirming the allegations. Emma's mouth fell open. You blackmailed a cop. I encouraged her to focus on cases where she has actual evidence instead of fishing expeditions that will only hurt her career. That's blackmail. That's negotiation. Adrian poured himself a drink and downed it in one swallow. She won't bother you again. You can't know that. Emma. He turned to face her fully. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to handle cops, criminals, and everyone in between. Chen will back off because she's smart enough to know when she's outmatched. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was insane and wrong and going to blow up in their faces. Instead, she said, she called me again after you left. Offered me protection and a new identity if I testified against you. Adrian's expression went very still. What did you say? I told her I didn't know what she was talking about and hung up. And that's the truth? You're not having second thoughts? Emma moved closer, taking his face in her hands. I'm having all the thoughts. This is terrifying and complicated and probably going to end badly, but I'm not running. I said 1 week, and I meant it. Something in Adrian's posture relaxed. He pulled her against him, holding on tight. 3 more days. 3 more days, she agreed. They stood like that for a long moment, just breathing together, finding comfort in the contact. Then Adrian pulled back. Get dressed. Nice clothes. We're going out. Where? To meet someone who wants to meet you. An hour later, Emma found herself in another expensive dress. This one, deep blue that made her eyes look almost gray. Being driven to a restaurant in Tribeca. The kind of place where you needed reservations months in advance and the menu didn't list prices. Who are we meeting? Emma asked for the 3rd time. Someone important. That's not an answer, Adrian smiled. You'll see. The restaurant was exactly as pretentious as Emma expected. All white tablecloths and hushed conversations and waiters who moved like they were performing ballet. Adrian led her to a private room in the back where a woman was already seated. She was maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon and eyes that missed nothing. When she saw Adrian, her face lit up. Adrian, darling. She stood and kissed both his cheeks. It's been too long. Hello, Sophia. The woman's gaze shifted to Emma, assessing her in one sweeping look. And this must be Emma. I've heard so much about you. Emma glanced at Adrian, who was studiously avoiding her eyes. You have? Adrian speaks of nothing else these days. It's quite refreshing. He's usually so dreadfully focused on business. Sophia gestured for them to sit. I'm Sophia Marconi. I've known Adrian since he was 18 and making terrible decisions in Queens. So you've known him a long time, Emma said, earning a laugh from Sophia. I like her, Sophia said to Adrian. She has spine. They ordered food that Emma was too nervous to taste, and Sophia asked her questions, not prying exactly, but thorough. Where she was from, what she did for work, how she'd met Adrian. Emma answered honestly, mostly, leaving out the parts about guns on buses and police detectives. Adrian tells me you're considering joining our world, Sophia said eventually. Your world? The business. This life. Sophia's expression was knowing. It's not an easy choice. Once you're in, you can't just walk away. I'm starting to understand that. Are you? Sophia leaned forward slightly. Because from where I sit, You look like a woman who's still trying to convince herself this is what she wants. Emma felt Adrian tense beside her, but she met Sophia's eyes steadily. I'm not trying to convince myself of anything. I'm trying to understand what I'm getting into before I commit. Smart. Most people jump in blind and drown. Sophia took a sip of her wine. What do you think of our Adrian? I think he's dangerous and complicated and probably going to give me a heart attack before this is all over. And yet you're still here. And yet I'm still here. Sophia smiled. Good answer. Honest answers are rare in this business. The dinner continued with lighter conversation, Sophia telling stories about Adrian when he was younger, Adrian looking increasingly uncomfortable as Emma learned about his various mishaps and near-death experiences. There was this one time, Sophia said, her eyes sparkling with mischief, when Adrian decided to take on the Bratva by himself, just walked into their headquarters and demanded they stop moving product through his territory. I was 22 and stupid, Adrian muttered. You were 22 and lucky they respected your audacity enough not to kill you on the spot. Sophia turned to Emma. He came out with 2 broken ribs and a concussion, but he got what he wanted. Emma looked at Adrian. You walked into a Russian mob headquarters alone? Like I said, I was stupid. You were brave, Sophia corrected. Stupid and brave aren't mutually exclusive. After dinner, Sophia kissed them both goodbye and told Emma to call her if she ever needed anything. A woman's perspective, a friend, an escape route. Whatever you need, I'm here. In the car, Emma turned to Adrian. Who is she really? Sophia Marconi runs the largest information network on the East Coast. If you need to know something about anyone, she's the person to ask. And she's your friend? She's the closest thing I have to family. Adrian's expression was soft with affection. When Sophia died, and I went off the rails, Sophia found me. Gave me work, taught me how to survive in this world without losing myself completely. She's impressive. She's terrifying. Adrian took Emma's hand. But she likes you, that's not a small thing. Why does it matter if she likes me? Because Sophia's approval means something in our world. It means people will think twice before coming after you. It means you have protection beyond just me. Emma processed that. You're setting me up. Making sure I'm protected, even if something happens to you. That's the idea. Adrian, 3 more days, Emma. 3 more days and you make your choice. But whatever you decide, I want you to be safe. He squeezed her hand. That's not negotiable. They drove back to the penthouse in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Adrian walked Emma to her door like always, kissed her goodnight like always. But this time, Emma grabbed his hand before he could leave. Stay. Adrian went very still. Emma, I'm not asking for anything more than your presence. I just don't want to be alone tonight. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. All right. They lay together on top of the covers, fully clothed, Emma's head on Adrian's chest and his arm around her shoulders. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and it grounded her in a way nothing else had. Tell me something true, she said into the darkness. About what? About you. Something you've never told anyone else. Adrian was quiet for so long Emma thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm terrified of you. She lifted her head to look at him. What? Everything I've built, every wall I've put up, every defense I have, you've walked through all of it like they don't exist, and I don't know what to do with that. His hand came up to brush hair from her face. You make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Normal things, a life that's more than just survival. That's not scary. That's human. In my world, being human gets you killed. Emma settled back against his chest. Then maybe it's time for a new world. Maybe. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and when Emma woke in the gray pre-dawn light, Adrian was still there. Still holding her, still breathing in sync with her own rhythm. She thought about Detective Chen's offer, about a fresh start, a new life, safety. Then she thought about this, Adrian's arms around her, his heartbeat under her ear, the possibility of being someone who mattered. There was no contest. The next 2 days passed in a blur of meetings and dinners and conversations that peeled back more layers of Adrian's world. Emma met his associates, saw how his network operated, understood the scope of what he controlled. It should have frightened her more than it did. Instead, She found herself fascinated. The way Adrian commanded loyalty without demanding it. The way he handled problems with surgical precision. The way people looked at him. Respect mixed with fear, mixed with something like awe. And through it all, he kept her close. Never hid anything. Never tried to soften the reality of what his life entailed. On the sixth night, Emma's last night before her decision was due, Adrian took her back to the club. They danced like they had before, but this time it felt different. Heavier. Like they both knew everything was about to change. "Tomorrow," Adrian said against her hair. "Tomorrow you choose. I know. I won't be angry if you leave. I'll keep my promise. Keep you safe. Set you up somewhere new. Let you go." Emma pulled back to look at him. "Is that what you want?" "I want you to be happy, safe, free." "That's not what I asked." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I want you to stay. I want you to choose this life, choose me, choose the chaos and the danger and all of it, but I also know that's selfish. Maybe I want to be selfish too." "Emma," she kissed him, shutting down whatever he was going to say. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Anything. This favor you owe Dmitry Volkov. What if he asks you to do something that compromises me? What if keeping me safe and paying your debt become mutually exclusive?" Adrian's expression went hard. "Then I burn the Volkov empire to ash and deal with the consequences." "You'd start a war over me?" Without hesitation. Emma's heart was pounding. "That's insane." "I know. You barely know me. I know enough." His hands came up to frame her face. "I know you're strong and smart and braver than you think. I know you see me, really see me, not just the monster or the power or the money. I know that losing you would hollow me out in ways I'm not sure I could survive. Adrian, I love you." The words came out raw, like they'd been dragged from somewhere deep. "I know it's too soon and I know you're not ready to hear it, but I love you. And whatever you decide tomorrow, that won't change." Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The music swelled around them, people dancing and laughing, the world spinning on while hers ground to a halt. "Say something," Adrian said quietly. "I don't know what to say." "The truth. That's all I ever want from you." Emma took a shaking breath. "I think I love you too, and that terrifies me more than anything else in this whole mess." Adrian pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. They swayed to the music, not really dancing anymore, just holding on. When they got back to the penthouse, Emma didn't go to her room. She followed Adrian to his, and when he turned to ask if she was sure, she kissed him with everything she had. They made love slowly, carefully, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. And afterward, lying in his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Emma made her decision. "I'm staying," she said into the darkness. Adrian went very still. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She turned to face him. "I don't want safe and normal. I want this. I want you. I want to stop being invisible and start being someone who matters. You matter to me. I know, and that's enough." Emma kissed him softly. "Whatever comes next, we handle it together." Adrian pulled her closer, his relief palpable. Together. They fell asleep tangled together, and Emma dreamed of cities burning and rising from ash, of power and danger and a man who saw her when no one else could. When she woke the next morning, Adrian was already awake, watching her. "Morning," she said. "Morning." He brushed hair from her face. "Any regrets?" "Ask me again in a year." He smiled. "I can do that." Emma's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it and saw an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Hello? Emma? It's your mother." Emma's stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "That's not important. What's important is that your sister's wedding is in 3 days and you still haven't RSVP'd. "I'm not coming." Silence on the other end. Then, "Excuse me?" "I'm not coming to the wedding. Tell Victoria I'm sorry, but I can't do it." "Emma Christine Carter, you will absolutely be at your sister's wedding. I don't care what little tantrum you're throwing. This is family." "No, Mom. This is you and Victoria pretending everything is fine while I'm expected to stand there and watch my ex-boyfriend marry my sister. I'm done pretending. I'm done making myself smaller so everyone else is comfortable. Where's this coming from? You've never talked to me like this. Maybe I should have. Emma sat up, Adrian's hand warm on her back, grounding her. I'm not coming, and I'm not apologizing for it. You want to be angry? Be angry. But I'm living my life now. My way. She hung up before her mother could respond. That was brave, Adrian said. That was overdue. Emma turned to him. No more apologizing for existing. No more making myself invisible. From now on, I matter. You always mattered. I know that now. Adrian kissed her, slow and deep, and Emma felt something shift inside her, the last piece of her old life falling away, the new one clicking into place. She was done surviving, done being erased, done being nothing. Emma Carter had chosen chaos, chosen danger, chosen a life that would probably end badly, but would at least be lived on her terms. And for the first time in 32 years, she felt completely, terrifyingly alive. 2 days after Emma told her mother she wasn't coming to the wedding, Adrian's phone rang at 4 in the morning. Emma felt him tense beside her, heard him answer in a voice that went from sleep-soft to razor-sharp in an instant. When? A pause. How many? Another pause, longer this time. I'm on my way. He was already pulling on clothes when Emma sat up. What's wrong? The Volkovs hit one of my warehouses. 3 men dead. $500,000 in product gone. Adrian's face was hard in the dim light. Dimitri's calling in his favor. Emma's blood went cold. What does he want? Me to look the other way while he consolidates territory. Means letting him take out 2 of my associates who've been blocking his expansion. Adrian holstered a gun Emma hadn't known he kept by the bed. I have to go handle this. You said you'd burn his empire down if he came after me. This isn't about you. This is about him testing how far he can push before I push back. Adrian paused at the door. Stay here. Marcus is outside. Don't leave the apartment. Adrian, wait. But he was already gone, the elevator doors closing on his set jaw and cold eyes. Emma sat in the dark, her mind racing. This was it. The reality of Adrian's world crashing into her new life with all the subtlety of a freight train. Men were dead. More would die. And somewhere in the middle of it all was a favor owed to a man who dealt in violence like other people dealt in stocks. She got up and paced the apartment, watching the sky lighten from black to gray to pale gold. Her phone sat on the counter, silent. No calls from her mother, no texts from Victoria. They'd probably written her off entirely by now. Good. Let them. Around 8 a.m., Marcus appeared with breakfast Emma couldn't eat and news that made her stomach clench. Boss is at the warehouse, meeting with the Volkovs in 2 hours to negotiate terms. What kind of terms? Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. The kind where someone ends up dead if the conversation goes wrong. Can I see him? Before the meeting? He said to keep you here. I don't care what he said. I need to see him. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You sure about that? Might be better not to see what he looks like before he goes to war. I'm sure. The warehouse was different in daylight, still industrial, still imposing, but somehow more real. Marcus led her through the main floor where men were cleaning up debris and blood stains, their faces grim. They barely glanced at Emma as she passed. Adrian was in the office, talking on the phone in rapid Russian. When he saw Emma, something flickered across his face. Surprise, then concern, then resignation. He ended the call. You shouldn't be here. I know, I came anyway. Adrian dismissed Marcus with a nod and waited until the door closed. Emma, don't. She crossed to him, taking his hands. Don't tell me to go home and wait like a good girl. If I'm in this, I'm in this. That means seeing all of it. This isn't going to be pretty. I didn't think it would be. He pulled her against him, holding on tight. Dimitri's going to ask me to sanction a hit on 2 people who've worked for me for years. If I say yes, I'm a coward who caves to pressure. If I say no, we go to war. What are you going to say? I don't know yet. Adrian pulled back to look at her. Part of me wants to burn it all down. Tell Dimitri to go to hell and deal with the consequences. But that puts you at risk, puts everyone who works for me at risk. The smart play is to negotiate, find middle ground. And if there is no middle ground? Then people die. His jaw tightened. Maybe including me. Emma's hands fisted in his shirt. Don't say that. It's the truth. Dimitri's been looking for an excuse to move against me for years. This might be it. Then don't go. Let Marcus handle it. Let someone else. If I don't show, it's a sign of weakness. Weakness gets you killed faster than anything else in this world. Adrian kissed her forehead. I have to go, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. If this goes sideways, if something happens to me, you get in a car with Marcus and you disappear. Sophia knows where to send you. Don't try to be brave. Don't try to fix it. Just run. Adrian, promise me, Emma. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she'd fight for him, die for him if it came to that. But she saw the fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. And the words died in her throat. I promise. The meeting was set for a neutral location, a restaurant that had closed for renovations, emptied of everything except tables and chairs. Emma watched from Marcus's SUV parked half a block away, binoculars pressed to her eyes even though Adrian had explicitly told her to stay at the warehouse. He's going to kill me for bringing you, Marcus muttered from the driver's seat. Then we'll die together. Through the restaurant's front windows, Emma could see Adrian and two of his men on one side of a table. Across from them sat three men she assumed were Dmitry Volkov and his people. The conversation looked civil from a distance. Hand gestures, what might have been laughter at one point. Then one of Dmitry's men stood abruptly. Adrian remained seated, but his posture changed. The air itself seemed to thicken with tension. This is going bad, Marcus said, already reaching for his phone. Before Emma could ask what he meant, the restaurant's back door burst open. 4 more men poured in, weapons drawn, and suddenly the civil conversation exploded into chaos. Adrian flipped the table using it as cover. His men returned fire. Glass shattered. People dropped. Emma's scream caught in her throat as she watched Adrian move. Fast, efficient, deadly. He took down one man, then another, his movements economical and precise. But there were too many. Even from half a block away, Emma could see they were outnumbered. We need to help him, she said. Miss Carter, now Marcus. Marcus made a decision. He called for backup, then pulled his own weapon. Stay in the car. Lock the doors. If anyone who isn't me or the boss approaches, you drive away. Understand? Emma nodded, already sliding into the driver's seat as Marcus sprinted toward the restaurant. She watched through the windshield as Marcus joined the fight, as more of Adrian's men arrived, as the tide slowly turned, bodies on the ground, blood on walls. The kind of violence she'd only seen in movies, now happening right in front of her. Then she saw him, Ryan Blake, stepping out of a car 2 spaces behind where she was parked. Emma's heart stopped. What was he doing here? How did he even know about this? She watched in horror as Ryan pulled out his phone, made a call, then started walking toward the restaurant. Not running from the violence, walking toward it like he belonged there. And that's when Emma understood. Ryan wasn't a victim of circumstance. He wasn't just Victoria's wealthy fiancé from a good family. He was part of this world, had always been part of it. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. 3 years. 3 years she'd loved him, and he'd been playing some kind of game she hadn't even known existed. Emma made a decision. She unlocked the car door and stepped out. Hey, she called. Ryan turned, his face going white when he saw her. Emma? What the hell are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, but I think I already know the answer. She moved closer, hands shaking but voice steady. You're working with the Volkovs, aren't you? That's why you dumped me and went after Victoria. The Blakes and the Volkovs have some kind of arrangement. Ryan's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Your father's in commercial real estate, right? Big developments all over the city. Let me guess. The Volkovs launder their money through his properties, and in exchange, your family gets protection and profit. Emma, you need to leave. Now. Or what? You'll have me killed like those people in the restaurant? She gestured toward the carnage. Is that why you left me? Because I was too low class for your criminal empire? Not useful enough? Ryan grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. You stupid. Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into? Adrian Castellano is a dead man walking. Dimitri's going to kill him, take his territory, and anyone associated with him is going down too. Emma jerked her arm free. Then I guess I'm going down. You don't have to. Come with me now. I can protect you. Tell Dmitri you were just a pawn. You didn't know anything. We can still... Still what? Pick up where we left off? Emma laughed, the sound bitter. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. The voice came from behind her. Emma turned to find one of Dmitri's men, gun pointed directly at her chest. Time slowed. Emma saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Ryan step back, already distancing himself. Saw her life about to end in a parking lot half a block from where Adrian was fighting for his. Then Marcus was there, slamming into the gunman, the shot going wide. They hit the ground fighting, and Emma stumbled backward. "Run!" Marcus shouted, but Emma's eyes were on the restaurant, where Adrian had appeared in the doorway. Their eyes met across the distance, and she saw his face contort with rage when he realized she was in danger. He started toward her, but Dmitri himself stepped into his path. "We're not done here, Castellano." Adrian didn't even look at him. He raised his gun and fired, not at Dmitri, but at the man fighting Marcus. The shot was clean, precise, final. The man dropped. Marcus scrambled to his feet, and Dmitri laughed. "So that's it. That's your weakness. A woman." He pulled his own weapon, aiming it at Emma. "Drop your gun or she dies." Adrian's face was blank, emotionless. But Emma could see the calculation behind his eyes, the terrible math he was doing. "Let her go," Adrian said. "This is between us." "No. This is exactly what this is about. You think you can operate in my city, steal my business, and face no consequences?" Dmitri's finger moved to the trigger. "She dies first. Then you." Emma's mind raced. She could run, try to get to cover before Dmitri fired. She could scream, distract him long enough for Adrian to take a shot. She could do nothing and hope Adrian was fast enough. Instead, she did something none of them expected. She walked toward Dmitri. "Emma, don't..." Adrian's voice was sharp with panic. "You want leverage?" Emma said to Dmitri, still walking. "Here I am. Let Adrian go and you can have me. Trade his life for mine." "Emma, stop!" Adrian moved forward, but two of Dmitri's men blocked his path. Emma stopped 3 feet from Dmitri's gun. "I mean it. Let him walk away. You get me as insurance that he won't retaliate. Isn't that worth more than killing us both?" Dmitri studied her, something like interest flickering across his face. "You love him that much? You'd die for him?" "Without question." "Fascinating." Dmitri lowered his gun slightly. Adrian Castellano, the man who feels nothing, brought low by a nurse's aide. "There's poetry in that." "There's stupidity in it," Ryan interjected, finally finding his voice. "She's nobody. Kill her and be done with it." Emma's eyes cut to Ryan. "Still such a romantic." Dmitri laughed. "I like her. She has spine." He looked at Adrian. "Tell you what, Castellano, I'll give you a choice. Your life or hers. You walk away now, leave the city, leave your empire, and I let her live. Or you stay and fight, and I kill her right now." "Don't," Emma said. "Don't you dare make that deal." But Adrian was already lowering his weapon. "You have my word. I walk away. You leave her alone." "No!" Emma started toward him, but Dmitri grabbed her arm. "A wise choice." Dmitri smiled. "You have 24 hours to be gone. If I see you after that, all deals are off." Adrian's eyes met Emma's one last time. She saw apology there, and love, and a kind of devastation that made her chest crack open. Then Marcus was pulling Adrian away, both of them retreating to their vehicles, leaving Emma with Dmitri and Ryan and the wreckage of what could have been. "Let me go," Emma said quietly. "Not yet. First, we make sure your boyfriend actually leaves." Dmitri gestured to one of his men. "Take her to the safe house. Keep her there until Castellano is confirmed out of the city." Emma was dragged to a car, shoved in the back seat. As they pulled away, she caught one last glimpse of Adrian's SUV disappearing around a corner. She'd saved his life, and lost him in the same moment. The safe house was an apartment in Queens, windowless and furnished like a prison cell. Emma sat on the edge of the bed and tried to figure out what happened next. Adrian was gone, probably already at the airport, Marcus forcing him onto a plane while he fought every instinct to come back for her. Dmitri had won. Ryan had gotten to stand there and watch her humiliation, and Emma was alone again, just like always. Except this time, something was different. She wasn't crying. wasn't collapsing into herself. Instead, she was angry, furious actually. She'd given up everything, her safety, her future, her life, to save Adrian. And he'd just walked away. Made a deal with a man who'd probably kill her anyway once Adrian was far enough away to not pose a threat. 2 hours passed, then 4. Emma memorized every inch of the apartment, looking for weaknesses, escape routes. The door was reinforced, the single guard outside armed and alert. Her phone had been taken. She had nothing but her clothes and her rage. Around midnight, she heard shouting, gunfire. The guard at her door returned fire, then went silent. The door burst open. Emma braced herself for whoever was coming through. It was Sophia Marconi, flanked by 4 armed men, looking utterly unruffled despite the violence. "Hello, dear. Ready to leave?" Emma's mouth fell open. "How did you—" "Adrian called me before he got on the plane, asked me to ensure your safety." Sophia extended a hand. "Come. We have work to do." In Sophia's car, Emma finally found her voice. "Adrian really left?" "His plane took off 3 hours ago, headed for Prague." Sophia glanced at her. "He saved your life." "He abandoned me. He did what he had to do to keep you breathing." Sophia's voice was gentle. "That's love, Emma. Not grand gestures. Sacrifice." Emma stared out the window at the passing city. "Where are we going?" "To finish this." Sophia smiled, and there was something sharp in it. Dmitry Volkov made a mistake. He assumed Adrian was the only one with power in this equation. He forgot about me. And he definitely forgot about you. "What are you talking about?" "You saved Adrian's life today. Walked into gunfire without hesitation. That kind of courage doesn't go unnoticed." Sophia pulled up to a building Emma recognized, Adrian's office. "The question is, what are you going to do with it?" Inside, Sophia spread documents across a conference table. Financial records, real estate holdings, shell companies. "The Volkovs have been laundering money through the Blake family's developments for 3 years, Sophia explained. "I've been tracking it, building a case. All I needed was confirmation of the connection." "Ryan," Emma said. "Exactly. Your ex-boyfriend is the link. He's been managing the transactions, hiding the paper trail." "Very clever, actually." Sophia looked up. "But not clever enough. With these documents, we can bring down both the Volkovs and the Blakes. The FBI has been looking for evidence like this for years." Emma's mind was racing. "You want to turn them in? I want to give you the choice. You can take these to the FBI yourself. Be the hero. Watch Ryan and his father and Dmitry all go to prison. Or you can walk away, start fresh somewhere new and leave the past behind." "What about Adrian?" "What about him? He's in Prague, building a new life. You could join him. Or you could stay here and finish what you started." Emma stared at the documents. Everything she needed to destroy the people who'd hurt her. Ryan, who'd used her and discarded her. Her family, who'd chosen Victoria's happiness over Emma's pain. The Volkovs, who'd tried to kill her. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 weeks ago. Invisible. Exhausted. Barely surviving. That woman would have walked away. Would have taken the easy out and disappeared. But Emma wasn't that woman anymore. "I'll do it," she said. "All of it." Sophia smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next 72 hours were a blur. Emma met with FBI agents, turned over Sophia's evidence, gave statements about everything she'd seen. Ryan was arrested at his office, dragged out in handcuffs while his colleagues watched. His father followed within hours. Dmitry Volkov was picked up at the airport trying to flee the country. The news coverage was intense. Emma avoided most of it, but she caught glimpses. Ryan's face on TV, looking nothing like the confident man who'd once promised her forever. Victoria's tearful interview claiming she'd had no idea about Ryan's criminal connections. Emma's mother called once. Emma didn't answer. A week after the arrests, Emma stood in front of the building where Victoria's wedding should have taken place. The venue was dark, the wedding canceled. She'd heard Victoria had gone back to California, broken and humiliated. Emma waited to feel something. Satisfaction. Vindication. Victory. Instead, she just felt tired. "You did it!" She turned to find Marcus standing a few feet away. "I thought you were in Prague with Adrian." "I was. He sent me back to make sure you were okay." Marcus moved closer. "He wants to see you, if you want to see him." Emma's heart stuttered. "He's here?" Been back for 2 days, waiting for you to finish what you needed to finish. Where is he? The penthouse. Where else? The elevator ride felt endless. Emma's hands were shaking, her breath coming too fast. What would she say to him? How did you talk to someone who'd given up everything for you, then let you give up everything in return? The doors opened directly into the apartment. Adrian was standing by the windows, backlit by the city lights, and when he turned and saw her, the expression on his face nearly broke her. Emma. She crossed the space between them and hit him, hard, right in the chest. You left me. I had to. You made a deal with Dmitri. You were just going to disappear and let him kill me anyway. Sophia was already in motion. I knew she'd get you out. Emma hit him again. You didn't know anything. You took a chance with my life. Yes, Adrian caught her wrist gently. Because if I'd stayed and fought, we'd both be dead. At least this way, one of us survived. I don't want to survive without you. Emma's voice cracked. I want to live with you, the real thing, not just surviving, living. Adrian pulled her against him, holding on like she might disappear. I love you. I should have said it better, said it more, made sure you knew. I know. Emma fisted her hands in his shirt. I know because you were willing to give up everything. Your empire, your city, your entire life. For me. I'd do it again. You won't have to. The Volkovs are done. The Blakes are done. It's over. Adrian pulled back to look at her. And what now? What do you want, Emma? She thought about it, really thought about it. Her old life was gone, destroyed by her own hand. Her family had written her off. Her job was a distant memory. Everything that had defined her for 32 years was ash. But standing here, in Adrian's arms, she didn't feel erased. She felt real, solid, present. I want this, she said. Whatever this is. You and me and whatever we build together. It won't be easy. I don't want easy. It might be dangerous. I'm counting on it. Adrian smiled, and it was the most genuine expression she'd ever seen on his face. Then I have something to ask you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box, something else. When he opened it, Emma saw a key. It's to the apartment, officially. Not you staying here because you're in danger. You living here because it's home. He paused. If you want that. Emma took the key, feeling the weight of it, a symbol of permanence, of choice, of mattering. Ask me the other thing, she said. What other thing? You know what thing. You have a ring in your pocket. I can see the outline. Adrian laughed, surprised. How did you? Ask me. He pulled out the second box, opened it to reveal a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Nothing ostentatious, nothing designed to show off wealth, just beautiful. Emma Carter, will you marry me? Will you build this crazy, dangerous, probably going to end badly life with me? Will you let me spend every day making sure you know you matter? Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. Yes to all of it. He slipped the ring on her finger and Emma felt something slot into place. This was right. This was real. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the club where they'd first danced. Sophia was there. Marcus was there. A handful of Adrian's associates attended. Emma's family wasn't invited. She'd made peace with that. As they danced to the same band that had played the night Adrian confessed he loved her, Emma thought about the woman she'd been, the one who'd received that wedding invitation and felt her world end, the one who'd been invisible, erased, nothing. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who'd walked through fire and came out forged into steel. What are you thinking? Adrian asked against her hair. That I'm happy, actually happy. Good, that's all I want. You, happy, with me. Emma pulled back to look at him. What about your empire? Are you going to rebuild? Already started, but different this time. Legitimate businesses mostly. I'm getting too old for constant wars. You're 43. I'm exhausted, he smiled. And I have someone to live for now. That changes the calculation. So what? We just live normal lives now? Define normal. Adrian spun her, the world blurring around them. We run legitimate businesses, occasionally help people who need problems solved, live in a too-big apartment and argue about who left the coffee pot on. Maybe adopt a dog. Is that normal? It's perfect. And it was. Not the life Emma had imagined when she'd opened that wedding invitation 4 months ago. Not the safe, quiet existence she'd thought she wanted. But it was hers, chosen, claimed, built from the wreckage of who she used to be. 6 months after the wedding, Emma stood on the terrace of the penthouse, her home now, fully and completely, and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Ryan Blake was serving a 15-year sentence for money laundering and racketeering. His father had gotten 20. Dmitry Volkov was looking at life. Victoria had moved to Los Angeles, changed her name, and was apparently engaged again. Their mother still called occasionally, but Emma rarely answered. She'd started working again, but not as a nurse's aide. Sophia had helped her enroll in nursing school, the real program this time. Emma was discovering she was actually good at it when she wasn't exhausted from working 3 jobs. Adrian had started a foundation in Sophia's name, helping at-risk youth in Queens. Emma helped run it, finding purpose in the work. They weren't perfect. They fought sometimes, usually about Adrian taking unnecessary risks or Emma pushing too hard in school. They had baggage, both of them, that didn't just disappear because they'd fallen in love, but they were real. They saw each other. And every day, Emma woke up next to the man who'd saved her life by seeing her when she'd been invisible to everyone else. "There you are." Adrian stepped onto the terrace with 2 glasses of wine. "What are you doing out here?" "Just thinking." About? About that bus. About what would have happened if you'd driven past that night instead of stopping. Adrian handed her a glass and pulled her against his side. "I couldn't have driven past. You needed someone to see you. I needed someone to save. We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights blink and pulse with life. Emma thought about the invitation that had broken her world open, about the sister who'd stolen her boyfriend, about the night everything changed. She wouldn't go back, wouldn't undo any of it, because the woman she'd been, small, invisible, erased, that woman would never have been standing here, would never have fought for herself, would never have mattered. Emma Carter had burned her old life to ash and built something better from the ruins. Something dangerous and complicated and absolutely, perfectly hers. She'd chosen chaos over safety, love over comfort, power over invisibility. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving. She was unstoppable.